I've always had vivid dreams, but I never considered myself to really have nightmares. I'd have scary dreams, to be sure, but I always found them exciting or, just good fodder for creative writing projects. The dreams I consider to be nightmares, though, these would be a lot more mundane, and they typically involved me getting up, starting my day, going through my morning routine, only suddenly wake up and find myself back in bed, usually having overslept with my alarm going off. Those were definitely nightmares, but that wasn't always the case. There was one dream that to me was the nightmare of nightmares, and it was one of the scariest things I've ever experienced. So I was 16. I remember waking up in the middle of the night and I was seeing this large figure, like this 8-9 foot tall creature, just made of pure shadow, looming over me. It had these long, gangly arms and these big claw hands, and it reached out and started grabbing at my throat with these shadowy claws. I was completely unable to move. I was just forced to watch this thing wrap its claw right around my throat. I kept trying to move, but I was absolutely unable to. And eventually, despite being unable to move my arms or legs, I was able to start flopping my entire body around like a fish out of water. And that seemed to surprise this shadow creature, and it just caused it to kind of move back in shock before it started even more ferociously trying to claw at me for what seemed like an eternity, until I was able to just flop enough to fall out of my bed and onto the floor, which freed me from whatever paralysis I was in and gave me that chance to get up and run the hell right out of my room. So after I collected my senses, first I figured, wow, that was a crazy nightmare. Until I realized, no, this was definitely something much, much different. Now, remember how I said I'll occasionally have a dream where I get up, I'll go through my morning routine, only find myself actually waking up to my alarm clock going off? This was incredibly similar to that, only with one big difference. I didn't have that experience of waking up afterwards because I was already awake. So what the hell happened? Now, I just knew that this wasn't just a dream. And as if whatever just happened didn't make enough of an impression on me, the next day I started to feel sick. I ended up needing to go to the doctor because I'd suddenly come down with strep throat. I was convinced that this thing was something else, and I couldn't have been the only person to experience something like that. And I would hear about people that had similar experiences and knew exactly what I meant whenever I said shadow people. I could never find that much solid information on it. This back in the mid to late 90s. And that was until the early 2000s. I found a Wikipedia article that described this phenomenon as being something that's happened all over the world. Every culture, going back, it seems to be forever, every account was basically the same. It was people waking up to see these figures made of pure shadow menacing them, unable to move, and just filled with sheer terror. And this phenomena had a name: sleep paralysis. Before we get into what sleep paralysis is, I want to tell you about one of the many and fun and useful things you can do with hypnosis, and that's eliciting hypnotic phenomena in the form of something called catalepsy. Now, catalepsy is defined as a condition characterized by muscular rigidity and fixation of posture regardless of external stimuli, as well as decreased sensitivity to pain. And this is something that we utilize a lot when we're doing hypnosis. And maybe you've seen a stage or street hypnotist kind of freeze somebody, pose them like a statue, or stick their hand to a table or a pole, make an arm become stiff and rigid like a bar of steel. They're unable to move. One of my favorites is eye catelepsy. I use it all the time. And if you want to see what that's like, I'll give you a quick demonstration of that now. If you don't want to, just go ahead and skip to the timestamp on the screen. So now I want you to just close your eyes and just imagine that there's the gluiest, stickiest substance that you can possibly imagine just kind of being smeared all over your eyes now. And just imagine what that would be like. The stickiest, gluiest substance that you can possibly imagine just being rubbed over your eyes, making your eyes so heavy, so sticky that they just become heavier and heavier, and all the muscles in and around your eyes are just relaxing as this sticky, gluey substance just goes all over your eyes, relaxing all the muscles in and around your eyes and making those eyes so heavy that they just won't open. And just imagine what that would be like now for those eyes to become so relaxed, so heavy that they just won't open, that they're just locked down, glued down, stuck down tight. Just imagine what that would be like now for those eyes to become so heavy that they're just locked down, glued down, stuck down tight. And no matter how hard you try to open them, you'll find that those eyes won't open. They're just locked down, glued down, stuck down tight, locked down, glued down, stuck down tight. Now go ahead and try to open them and find that those eyes are just locked down, glued down, stuck down tight. Really try and find that they're locked down, glued down, stuck down tight. Good. Now stop trying and just take a breath in and relax and open those eyes right back up. But I want to be clear that hypnotic catelepsy it's not just a fun party trick, but this is an important tool that hypnotists can use to demonstrate the power of combining heightened focus and suggestions and imagination to influence our physical states. So we can do things like reduce the anxiety that we feel physically in our body. This is just a great and entertaining way to illustrate that our minds have so much more power and influence over our physical states than we realize. So why am I bringing this up? Well, easy. That's because catelepsy, much like hypnosis, is a completely natural state. We can be guided into it, but we also enter it without needing any guidance. So, like I said, our minds are incredibly powerful. They're more powerful than we give them credit for, honestly. But there's one issue, and that's that our subconscious mind can't distinguish between what's real and what's imaginary. So that's why if we're having a dream where we're running or being chased, we can wake up and we'll be out of breath, as if we were actually running. Our body is behaving as if the dream we were having was real. By dreaming about whatever scenario we find ourselves in, our subconscious is generating the same emotions that we would experience as if we were actually there. And since our emotional state has an impact on our physical state, when we wake up, we're still feeling the effects of that adrenaline pumping kind of feeling. Now, since sleep is a time for us to rest and recharge, acting out our dreams physically isn't going to be very conducive to that, right? This is why we go to sleep, and when we do, we enter a cataleptic state. This is to prevent us from acting out our dreams, which would be unsafe, because everything our body does is meant to protect us or benefit us in some way. So this is our body keeping us safe to prevent us from acting out our dreams. And it does this by making most of the voluntary muscles in the body experience a degree of paralysis or catelepsy. There's a transitional state we go through before we fall asleep that's known as the hypnagogic state. You're not fully awake, but you're not completely asleep either. So when you're in the hypnagogic state, You can experience visual imagery like brief dreamlike scenes, auditory hallucinations, or abstract thoughts as those barriers between the conscious and subconscious begin to blur. We can also experience physical sensations, most commonly what's known as a hypnotic jerk. So you've probably experienced this when you're falling asleep on a flight or on the couch or something. There's a sensation like you're falling, and you suddenly just jerk back into consciousness. You jerk yourself awake. That's a hypnotic jerk. So we also go through a transitional state when we wake up. This is known as the hypnopompic state. And in the hypnopompic state, we can also experience a range of phenomena that's similar to the hypnagogic state, only it happens as we're transitioning from sleep to being awake, not from being awake to going to sleep. And this can include feelings of disorientation, like what I would experience waking up after having a dream I was already awake and going through my day and wondering what was going on. I'm disoriented. That is from the hypnopompic state. Now, when we're asleep and we go into the REM state and we're experiencing that, our minds are incredibly active. There is a lot going on. But like anything, there can occasionally be a disruption in the sleep cycle. And this is when sleep paralysis can occur. So our mind is in the hypnopompic state, transitioning out of sleep, but we're regaining consciousness before all the other switches have been flipped to bring us fully back online, right? So we wake up, but our body is still in that temporary paralysis. And this is very unsettling because we're not supposed to know that our body can do this. It's one of the, like, flip all the lights on, they're just on. And then all of a sudden, only half of them are on, and we're not supposed to know that. So we wake up, but our body is remaining in that temporary paralysis. And this is very unsettling because we're not supposed to know that our body can do that, right? Since we're in this hypnopompic state, we can still experience visual imagery. If we find that we all of a sudden can't move, that's frightening. So our mind begins generating frightening imagery, which is where the shadow people that come with sleep paralysis come from. If we all of a sudden find that we can't move, right, that's frightening. So the amygdala, which has our fight, flight, freeze reflex, activates, and it becomes hypervigilant. And it's looking for potential threats, right? It's saying, I'm in danger now. And since we're in this transitional state, we're still very subconscious. And the subconscious just gives us more of what it thinks that we want. So if we are worried about feeling anxious and we're thinking about, oh, I'm going to feel anxious, it goes, oh, you want to feel anxious. And it gives us more of that anxiety. So now it's hearing this consciously. We're going, oh, I'm in danger. This is scary. And it goes, oh, okay, you want something scary. Since our thoughts generate emotions, the next thing you know, ta-da, here's the scariest shit you've ever seen in your life. It starts happening right then because you're essentially turning AR mode on and looking at a nightmare. Now, just to be clear, hypnosis does not cause sleep paralysis. These are two very different, very distinct things, but they do share some commonalities. Catelepsy being one of them. And the other is that they both involve shifts in our states of consciousness. Whereas sleep paralysis, though, is an involuntary disruption that occurs in the transition between sleep and wakefulness. Hypnosis is a voluntary state. It's a heightened state of focus that we can use to impress onto the subconscious mind positive changes that we want to make in our lives. The experience and the purposes of these states are wildly different. It's literally like night and day. But there are areas of overlap that I think really offer some fascinating insights into the complexity of the human mind and consciousness and just how we work. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and that you learned something. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Or if you've experienced sleep paralysis, let me know. Tell me your story. And don't forget to like, share this, and hit that subscribe and follow me for more. And take care, and I'll be seeing you.